In our last class, we discussed these 5 stages of mind in details. Modhavastha, even though technically Kshipta, Modha, Vikshipta, Ekagra and Niruddham, but we put it first Modha, Kshipta, Vikshipta, Ekagra and finally Niruddha. Actually, there are certain points to be understood very carefully because these are the basic points, because without understanding little bit of Sankhya, this is little difficult to understand yoga philosophy. This Pradhana, Purusha, Prakriti, all these things words will be coming indirectly somewhere or other. So I also thought of to shed some light, little to throw some light regarding this. First of all, as you have already seen, that mainly these 3 gunas, Sattva, Raja and Tamas, plays a different role in life. So we say Sattva guna stands for Prakasham, illumination. So which we are seeing in Bhagavad Gita also. Maya Dakshena Visa. And Rajaguna, activity is a Kriya. So when it's a Kriya, that means movement, activities. And when you look at Tamoguna, so Tamoguna means being in one place, which is involves suppression, control. So that is what called as Tamoguna Dharma. You can use the word. But remember, all these gunas is subject to go through changes. In fact, this is very natural. But the point here is, when they go through some changes, generally, Sattva leads to Sattva. From Sattva, Sattva related thing happens. From Rajas, Rajas related thing happens. And from Tamas, Tamas related thing happens. That's why we discussed in details in the last class the effect of or the outcome of Mudha Avastha, where mainly it is Tama Pradhana. Now, interestingly, what happens is, here there is some type of mixture, as we have already seen it. Somewhere Sattva is predominant, Tamas and Rajas becomes Gaunam, secondary. So that means a mixture in such a way there is no, let us say, it's not perfectly done like, I would rather say 50-50 or equally. But there is some type of calculation, somehow it happens. But we say very clearly, when this gunas especially goes through same changes, having change, going through change, but there is no change, generally that we use sometimes the word called Pradhanam, sometimes we use called Mula Prakriti, Prakriti Purusha. So you have to, this word you have to remember, okay? Prakriti Purusha. So Purusha is ultimate. So when it says Prakriti, what is Mula Prakriti? So Mula means the root. So Prakriti means Prakriti don't translate as nature, okay? Please, God's sake. We have already discussed long back. Don't do that. Which we discussed in details regarding Prakriti in Panchadasya. If you don't recollect, please go back. So one class we have taken on this aspect. Now when we talk about Moola Prakriti, now Moola Prakriti is called as inert Jadam in nature. And not only it is Jadam, it is also this goes through change. Parinamini goes through the changes, subject to change. And of course, it has got 3 gunas. So that we discussed: prakasham, illumination; kriya, activities. Because of that reason, mind goes for pravrutim. Can you see this point? Because of the rajas, mind gets engaged. That pravrutti comes because of rajoguna. And finally, tamas stationed. Okay? Doesn't want to move. Why he doesn't want to move? Don't ask. Okay? Now, if this is the case, now we say that when this is Mula Prakriti, now Purushaha we use the word. So the Purushaha, Puri Shayanat we use in Vedanta Shastram. So if we look at this Purushaha has got 2 aspects. So when it has got 2 aspects, 2 purposes you can say. So one purpose is to go for enjoyment, and another purpose is to become free. So now if that is the case, now when it goes along with gunas, definitely goes to where? Goes towards bhogam, enjoyment or experience, better enjoyment, experience. Whereas when it starts trying to see one's own self, tries to understand one's own self, there we call Atma Sakshatkar, or we use the word Apavarga, and that is called moksha. And interestingly, we also need to look at when this Purusha comes in contact with inert, let us say inert, this body also, there that Purusha is called as Jiva. What generally we translate, right translation would be soul. So we have seen in details in different occasions. Now what happens here is, and of course same Purusha is Nitya Kutastha. It is eternal and Kute Tishtati, because all are Vedantic terminology, don't worry. Okay, we have discussed in different occasions differently. You don't have to break your head, just I am bringing it all these points. Now when you look at, now this Purusha now goes through changes, and especially there is the parinama that changes differently. There is no equanimity. Now the whole entire creation is being formed. These are the few things we need to understand very carefully. So we can look at that when this entire creation comes, first we say that Mahat Tattva comes first. So this is Sankhya and Yoga mixture, okay? So that it becomes easier. Mahat Tattva, because we will be seeing Tanmatras and all these things as we see. Because these are the terminology you have to really recollect time to time. So when you use the word Mahat Tattva, so here interestingly we need to see as these three gunas, Sattva, Raja, Tama. And generally Sattva guna becomes Pradhana, and Raja guna and Tama guna linga matram, not a gaunam, for the namesake. This is the difference, okay? Sattva guna Pradhana, predominantly Sattva guna, whereas Raja guna and Tama guna linga matram, for the namesake, mere presence, you can use the word. That is what is called as here called Mahat-tattva. And this is being in the form of the seed, bija rupam iti. And we say from this the entire creation is formed. So I am going along with the Sankhya, okay? Please understand this point. Now if this is case, what we call in Vedanta also we have that Mahat Tattva, we called as, in Vedanta also we have the same concept, we called as Samashti Chittam, because Vritti Chitta Vritti Nirodha, so that's why I am bringing all these aspects, okay? Samashti Chittam. Samashti Chittam means the total mind. Sometimes that name is called as what? In Tattvavada we have seen, called Hiranyagarbha. So hope you remember this, okay? So if the Samashti Chitta becomes Hiranyagarbha, so what is Vyashti Chittam? Come on. Taijas. Correct? So Taijas Hiranyagarbha. So please, once in a while you need to really refer Tattvavada, okay? Or else Vasudevendra Yogidram. I'll start here, okay? However, now here says beautifully, when this Vyashti Chitta sees the Samashti Chitta, so that is what we called as this Sakshatkara. That is what called Moksha Apavarga. So now when we say this thing, in Vedanta, this Chittam again is divided into 4 categories. We say Mana, Buddhi, Ahankara and Chittam. That you have already seen it. Ahankara means where there is Sankalpa Vikalpatmaka Manaha. So where there is doubt, things comes and goes. Then comes Manaha Buddhi, where there is Nischayatmika Buddhi, when decision making, where the decision making, your decision making faculty. Then third one is called Aham Karaha, Aham Karomi iti Bhavaha, where you try to own up, you try to take up that this is what I am doing it. The sense of me, sense of mine, where it comes. And of course, the finally in Vedanta Shastra, Chittam is being used as samskaras, or you can say memories, smruti. So in Vedanta Shastra, when we use the word Chittam, so we that either it is referred to our Chittam, the memory, or in the form of samskaras. Whereas if we look at here, there is some differences here. Because this in Sankhya philosophy, Mahat-tattva sometimes is being used as Buddhi. And of course, in Yoga, we use the word Chitta. You have to be very careful. So instead of four, that mano, buddhi, ahankara, chittam, Sankhya use the word buddhi. Yoga uses the same thing as one word called chittam. That's why if you see in Sankhya, chittam is included in buddhi. In yoga philosophy, buddhi is included in chittam. Is it clear? I hope I am not confusing, okay? Because this is completely academic. Because unless you look at these aspects, then it will not work. Then you will say, Chittavutti Nirodha, what is Chittavutti? Then you have to go superficially. That's why what happened is, it says beautifully, now, if this is the case, now, in Chitta, Ahankara also is there in the form of seed. So when Ahankara is there in Chittam, so we use the word called Asmita. We will be seeing later on. So the definition will come. Asmita will come. So the definition comes Asmita. Now if this is the case, now the second changes happens from Mahatattva. Because why second changes comes? Because of Ahankara. First Chittam, Mahatattva or Chittam. Then there is Ahankara is in the seed form. So because of the Ahankara, now one becomes many. Because wherever Ahankara gets in, what is the job of the Ahankara? To divide. That's why we have a beautiful policy. You know, my favorite is Britishers, okay? Divide and rule policy. Because they were most Ahankaris. So, Ahankara, the ego, always destroys. That's why, you know, this is my jocular way, I would say, Europeans especially, without orange they cannot survive. Because orange is a status. If you have, you know, orange garden, this is what I learned, I was shocked. If you have orange garden, in Italy also, that means you are somebody. So orange garden shows your status, nobility, everything. That's why these Britishers, when they came to India, they brought everything, including pine trees, okay, here, to feel comfortable. One of the destructing things they have done. Because they wanted to feel comfortable, you understand, as though they are in Europe. They literally, you know, wasted the Himalayan region and of course in Uti, that side. They destroyed a lot of things they have done. But they never, including tea they brought, but they never brought orange. Because those Britishers came to India those days, they were third grade people. So how can they will be called as noble? You understand? What a silly ideas. Anyway, this is my interpretation, okay? I may be wrong. I need not to be right. But you should know, okay, this trick and techniques, okay? That's why it's not that easy to digest. However, point is very clear that because of Ahankara, now from one to many happens. What we call in short, me and other than me. That I need to accept something different than me, or I have to reject something different than me. So now, because of that reason, from 1 to 2 started. Me plus. Then the third type of changes that happens, that we call as 5 tanmatras, pancha tanmatra. So in pancha tanmatra, the 5 subtle elements. Panchikaranam now comes as it is, don't worry, okay? So when you say 5 subtle elements, because whatever we see, these are called as gross elements. So these 5 elements, and of course, along with these 5 elements, ahankara is there always, because of ahankara all these things happens. Then next step we say comes 11 indriyas. So how come this 11 indriyas comes? So when you say 11 indriyas, so there we use the very carefully. 5 gyanendriyas, remember, all are in subtle form, not external form. So 5 gyanendriyas, organs of perception, and 5 organs of actions. That's why we have a beautiful point. Suppose somebody is not able to walk, that means leg problem. So we do have this, that please worship Vishnu. In fact, mother will start worshipping if a child is not able to walk properly. So what we do is, we start worshipping Vishnu, because Vishnu is the presiding deity of Father. That's why for each organs of action, if it is not functioning, if we worship, for example, suppose eyes are not, you are not able to see properly. So there we say very nicely, worship Surya. And especially we do have this, that in the form of Viranchi Narayanam. The Surya as a Viranchi Narayana, which takes care. So these are the things being talked here, that this 5 organs of perceptions in subtle form and 5 organs of actions. And of course, the 11 one is 5, 5, 10, because total 11. So 11 comes here is mind, manas. Now from this, the next development happens, that 5 gross elements, sthula matra. Now here, if we try to see, now this sattva becoming more adulterated, and slowly tamas becomes more predominant. Can you see this point? The power of sattva goes down, and the power of tamas becomes stronger. Somebody said, Swamiji, will it not work like homeopathy? You know what is in homeopathy interesting point? Or will it not work like, what do you call, alcohol? Longer you preserve, okay? Becomes not only costlier, also stronger. I don't know really it becomes stronger or not. Those who know, they can tell it. But in homeopathy, one good thing is there. This is what they say. I don't know how far it is true or not, okay? In mother tincture, those days, okay, nowadays things are different. They used to get this mother tincture. They never buy, okay, those days, okay, nowadays I don't know, okay. They will keep adding water after another, okay. And they say, more water is being added, you understand. Suppose it is 100 ml, for example, they will take away 5 ml. 5 ml water will be added. After a few days, again some 5 ml goes, again 5 ml water is added, okay. They say more water is being added in this way, the effect of that medicine in homeopathy becomes more stronger, okay. How far it is true, don't ask. This is what I have heard, okay. I may be wrong, okay. Because I have to give respect to homeopathy doctors, okay. But remember, it works. So whatever it may be. So you may say that maybe same thing, it can work here. Please understand, whether it works or not is your problem, it's not my problem. So, but what we observe from this subtle to gross thing when it happens, even though technically from sattva to sattva, rajas to rajas, tamas to tamas should happen, but because of grossification, please remember this point, because of panchikaranam, grossification, now the tamas aspect becomes more predominant, or you can say more visible. And because the tamas is more predominant or visible, now mind easily accepts or adopts the tamas. And here, again going back, I need not, because this is what, because Sankhya Karika, because I am referring, there is Sankhya Karika. So from the verse of 122 verse, from that I am referring. That's what whole thing I am talking it. Where he says, Prakutehe mahattatah ahankara tasmad ganasya sudasakah tasmadapi sudasakat panchebhyah panchabhutani iti. Then it says, Mula prakuti vikrutihi mohad adya prakuti vikrutaya saptaha sudasakastu vikara na prakuti na vikruti purushaha iti. And interestingly, here also we need to understand whatever I explained, this is completely based on these two verses, nothing else. So, what is being highlighted here? How this creation came? So, there in fact we do refer different texts. In fact, recently in Bhagavad Gita we have been seeing that Lord Krishna says that everything is being created in keeping with. In fact, avasaha, helplessly, suddenly, because of the prakriti. Nothing, because I am just maya adhyakshena, in my presence, me as a presiding principal, I create everything where I am not involved. That's why in 9th chapter very carefully talks the characteristics of the Ishvara, then only comes to the Srushti Karma. Now we are continuing, still we will be continuing. So how that was being put, same thing also here is being said in one beautifully, that Surya Chandramaso, in Veda it comes, Surya Chandramaso dhata yatha purvam akalpayataha. So that means that if you look at the Surya and Chandra, that illuminatory factor was being created in keeping with the Purva Kalpam, previous Kalpa. So that means whatever is being created, we don't say create because this is called against law of conservation, that it goes through the change. Because as you know, no matter can be created. Matter cannot be created, it is impossible. This is the basic physics one has to understand. So when it cannot be created, so how can you say that this universe is being created, this matter is created? But anyway, people do talk differently. That's why we bring very carefully, universe is not created at all. It was in on manifestation form, it comes to manifestation. It goes through the change. Again from manifestation, it goes to unmanifestation. That's why we are caught up in a cycle. Can you see this point? Until and unless we have knowledge, we cannot come out of this cycle. It is impossible. So that's why when these other things are there, now the point is very clear. Now, if this is the case, now chitta, Instead of going towards tamas, it should go towards purusha. Because it has got two aspects. Either it will go for apavargam, the moksha, the freedom, or it will go for bhogam. That's why we say in some other place, in fact I have talked, in some text I had seen this point, the chittam as yoga, already you know, is called a river and is a unique river. Why it is called river? As river keeps flowing, so also mind keeps flowing, chittam keeps flowing. And what does it do? As it keeps flowing, interestingly, if you observe, as this river or water is flowing, because of the wind, there will be different types of what? Waves. And when there are different types of waves are there, now that waves is going to hit the bank of the river. If there are pebbles, if there are stones or there are holes, actually the river is going to get in the field, the water will be filled in that, and the river will have that size, that shape. Whereas when there is no, let us say, wind, river only will keep flowing. Same thing also, the mind is like a river. So when mind is a river, now because of the ahankara wind, now it will take different shapes and it will come in contact with sense objects. Now when it comes in contact with the sense objects, then based on the sense object, it picks up the same bruti, which will be seeing the verse, sutra number 4. So when it takes up that bruti, so you see the pot, now ahankara, wow, I want that pot. So ahankara is involved. Oh, I know that pot. What happens? Now there is a pot bruti in your mind. So hopefully your mind is not pot, okay? That too, crackpot, okay? If it is pot, I can understand. But don't entertain a crackpot at least. However, joke apart. So we say automatically the mind or chittam adopts that particular brutti. And when ahankara is being withdrawn, automatically what happens? You will discover the mind will withdraw from that object. The chittam will not be no more connected to this experiencing world or in the objective world. That's why in yoga, dharana, dhyanam is being highlighted. You understand the concept here? So to make sure to handle or to see how this ahankara pushes the chittam to have its own identity. So that's why when this is there, what we need to do here? He says, look, if this is the case, now I need to be very careful. I have to allow my mind to get connected to, or chittam to get connected to apavargam, moksha, not to the bhogam. That's why, as I started, mind is a unique river. River only flows from top to bottom. Whereas this mind river can flow both ways. From top to bottom, bottom to top. This is the unique river. Whereas all the characteristics of river is there with the mind. We have seen in different occasions, also will be seeing differently. So if this is the case, what is to be done? That's why in Yoga Sutra, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So that means this Chitta Vritti, when it goes to this Niruddham stage. So what is the Niruddham stage? It is not controlling, it is not removing, it is not getting rid of, but here is where all these three gunas, sattva, raja, tamaha, please understand the absence of three gunas and their activities. That is what called niruddham. And that is what is called as yoga. That's why yoga is not union of Atma Paramatma. But yoga means what? Abiding within one's own self. Samadhi iti. And what happens? He says, Tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. Then, because of these reasons, or at that moment, you can use the word, at that time, drashtu means here Purusha, the seer, avoids swarupe, its in own nature, staying in its own nature, because there is no need of going out. Because remember, that time mind becomes extrovert when mind is not peaceful within one's own self. I will put this way. When mind does not find any interest in one's own self, that time the chittam wants to go out. And why it happens? We discussed the Srushti Karma, because of ahankara. Because the ahankara, by creating divisions, it always creates conflict in me, and because of which I don't find that much interest in me, myself. That's why an ahankari, an egoist person, even though establishes ego, even though he or she only exhibits ego, but remember, does not accept one's own self. Can you see this point? A lot of complex the egoist person has. Have you not observed? You can look at yourself. Whenever you have some ego, what does it mean? Definitely you have some complex at that moment. For example's sake, I can say, if you ask me, Swamiji, what was your breakfast? I might not have taken breakfast at all, because I didn't have time or I didn't have money. Anyone. But I did not want to give this impression to you that I don't have money, or I could not afford, or I didn't have time. I'm so stupid, both way. Externally, internally, okay? That's why these two examples. So what I'll say, so if Indians, wow, Indian, that means if South Indians, okay? What I'll say, idli vadai, and also sambar. Whereas if I see other people, continental, with French fries. Because morning, nothing like to have French fry, okay? Now, remember, why did I talk this two statement or any statement? Why? Because there is a complex in me. I am not able to accept myself. So the ego, please understand, is a very subtle point to catch. Whenever I raise my voice or when I create a division any place, anywhere, or where I want to stand apart, I want to be different, that too unnecessarily, please understand. That means that moment I have some complex in me, because of which I am not able to accept myself. That's why I want to present differently to others. So in short, ego creates the division in me. And remember, for ego, you need to have Shraddha, bend down in the beginning, because ego cannot be resolved, ego cannot be understood directly. I have seen people, when they don't have Shraddha, when they do not know how to bend down, don't worry, they bend down whole life. It is like, all men, those who say, I never bend down. How they bend down in whole life, you know better. With this, I'll share one story and go away. This old joke story, okay, our mullah. So one day mullah was giving a discourse to his friends. How to live a married life, especially being a man, okay? Because he was a very manly person, and those days. And remember, I was also Muslim, okay? Women should be treated like slave. It's wrong, okay? Please understand. It's not to be done. Never make this mistake. They are Lakshmi. They are not slave. However, so, whatever we say, they must listen to it. Blah, 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 blah. And all these people, those who are listening, they were clapping. Wow, blah. Really, we are very amazed. We could talk, but we feel it, but we are not able to talk it. Really, we respect you. You have guts. Mullah was, his chest was expanding, and, hopefully it did not burst, okay? It was expanding. Finally, Mullah, because all are looking, Mullah is looking at the door side. Suddenly, Mullah became a little different. Then everybody asked, what is happening? What happened? No, can you go away? Why? What happened suddenly? Hey. Then after that, what happens? The lady comes in. Because lady was out of the house, that same Mullah was talking all these things. Now lady could sense, because then they don't hear, okay? They sense. That too from a distance, okay? They have that sort of powerful. What is going on? Now this is called ahankara here. What Mullah did it? This is called ahankari. So ahankari Purusha does wrong things hidingly and justifies there. So Mullah, the same story I am presenting contextually. So Mullah, what did he do? You know the story. So he got into the, got under the cot. And of course all these other people left. Now he says, look, I am here because Mullah's wife happens to be fat, lady cannot bend down. Then the lady says, come out, I will see. He said, look, I am the master of the house. The master of the house can choose where to live, where to lie down. That's none of your business. This is called ahankaram. How this ego plays the same role to defend, to protect, to be ridiculed, but thinking that I am smart. Have you not observed? The more I am having ego in my life, the more I am being ridiculed by myself. Nobody ridicules me. Nobody condemns me. Nobody looks down on me. It is me who makes me to look down myself. And again, I am uncomfortable with others. I blame everybody. That is because of this ahankara. That's why tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam. So when the seer starts avoiding one's own self, that's why whole game is what? Starting with tamas to rajas, rajas to sattva. Then to make sure that I don't feed, I don't encourage the ahankara. Because the moment I start feeding or encouraging the ahankara starts creating division. And that is how the chittam starts fluctuating or chittam becomes many. Is it clear? That's why the creation, when it is being talked, prakriti, mula prakriti, from mula prakriti, second stage is called ahankara gets in. Can you see this point? Once ahankara gets in, then all sort of divisions takes place in our life. And how it happens, we'll see tomorrow. Sorry, day after tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.